What happens when you take Lord of the Rings and mix it with 50 Shades of Grey? You get Seeds of Chaos. Ooh, look at this dude. I'm jacked. This man, the hero of Rosaria, victor of the Sage of Karst, one of the mighty generals of Dinara's host, and champion of the Six Realms. At least, that's what those outside of Arthdale knew him as. Here, he is simply known as Rowan the Blackwell. Many years had passed since that fateful time, and the hero now lived out his days in peace. He had done his best to return to the humble obscurity of an uneventful village life, with his childhood sweetheart and wife, Alexia, by his side. Damn, Alexia looking old!
Ah, there you are, boy. Back from this afternoon patrol already.
I didn't want to disturb Alexia, so I set out early. Even after all these years, I still have trouble sleeping past sunrise.
Your dedication to the town's safety is commendable, Rowan. But I sometimes wonder if you're a bit too committed to your task. With how hawkishly you stalk the perimeter, you think every rock and shrub in Rosaria hid 10 brigands apiece.
Old habits die hard.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother.
I spent so much time in the fields during the war that I got used to being alone in the wild. I like the solitude. Gives me time to clear my head.
It never hurts to get away from it all for a while. I used to take long walks myself back when I was a young man.
You were a young man?
Careful with that tongue of yours, my boy. Old age comes at a bad time for us all. And I've only got so many winters left in me.
Hey, don't even joke about that. You haven't grown that long in the tooth yet, Elder. I'm sure you'll be here for many more years to lecture us about the good old days.
Heh, you underestimate the sturdiness of my old bones. Do not fret, my child. None of the gods may live forever, and the goddess has blessed me to live a long and happy life. I got to spend nearly 30 years with the woman I loved, and while I never had a child, seeing you grow up into the man you are gave me a parent's joy. When the time comes to join my Maris in the world that lies beneath this one, I shall do so without regrets.
Come on now, it's too nice of a day for all this talk of death. We should leave such dark subjects for drearier times.
Indeed, you have a beautiful wife that you best be getting home to, instead of spending all this time with an old fool like me.
I don't know why I gotta do this when I talk old. Rowan enters to the sweet scent of warm baked bread and the sizzle of roasting duck. Ooh, duck. Alexia, are you home?
Oh, a redhead! Alexia, I like me the redhead.
His wife turned to him and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Beneath it was the faintest trace of a smile. Where else would I be? I've been cleaning up this awful mess I made with dinner. Uneventful, thankfully. There's only been a few travelers on the road to Rosdale, and the western woods seem quiet. How's Old Hammond's farm doing? They're having a rough go of it. Seems like blight hit their crops. They're going to struggle to bring much of anything to the market this year. That poor family. How is Tish doing in all of this? Gravid. She looks about ready to deliver. Goddess, what child are they on now? 4? 5? 5. Maybe we should bring them something. Perhaps Connor might be willing to donate a few extra loaves on market day. Rowan smiled to himself inwardly at the scope of the town's concerns, compared to the horrors of war. A small dip in crop yields seemed almost trivial. He watched as Alexia turned back to face the stove. Well, either way, welcome home, love. Have a seat at the table. Dinner will be ready shortly. His eyes were caught on the shape of her rear as she bent lower. Oh. Even though her skirt showed an excellent outline of her body. You know, when it comes to food, I don't really like distractions, because I really love me some food, but we're gonna provide a special distraction. Rowan crept up stealthily behind his wife, picking his steps with care. Oblivious to his approach, she continued to wash her hands, her hips swaying gently back and forth. He leaned towards her, his hips hovering at her ear. She gasped when she felt him sidle up behind her, his arms wrapping around her midriff. How can I possibly sit when I got you here all to myself? Rowan, dinner is almost... He kissed her neck. Alexia promptly forgot all about dinner. Quickly, without making a sound, Rowan slid up behind his unsuspecting wife as she was washing the dishes and grabbed her by the hips, pulling her ass to his crotch. With both of his hands busy with the task, she was left defenseless as they began to gently kiss the pale, exposed flesh of the nape of her neck. I don't think you can do this kind of affection in Attack on Titan. I'm trying to wash the dishes here, husband, and you are not exactly helping. I am not stopping you, am I? Your hands are perfectly free to continue doing what you are doing. As Rowan continued to plant soft kisses down the length of the unguarded neck, Alexia's breath grew both shorter and shallower, and her skin more flush. You might not be stopping me, dear heart, but you are making it awfully difficult for me to concentrate on the cleaning of these plates. I'm sorry, I did not realize that you found this so distracting. I suppose if I were to do this, it would not help. While he continued his assault on her neck, Rowan slid one hand down to caress her thigh. No, husband, that definitely does not help. How about this? With a grin, he moved his hand from her hip slowly up her stomach and... Oh! Red Riding Hood over here. The door swung open and Rowan stopped short. There, standing before him, was a beautiful young woman, slender and frail. Drawn around her narrow shoulders was a red cloak, the hood pulled up to conceal her pale silver hair. A Prothan, one of the humans bound by blood to the first covenant with the goddess of Silencia. Her regal face bore a look of extreme worry, fear glimmering in her golden eyes. You're Rowan, right? This is Rowan Blackwell's home? Please, you must tell me where I can find him.
Calm down, miss. What's wrong?
Are you Rowan Blackwell?
I am.
Her narrow lips spread wide into the deepest smile. She reached out and took hold of his arm, her fingers clinging desperately to the fabric of his shirt. Oh, thanks, Silencia, it's you. The village said you were here, but I didn't believe them. Please, I need your help. It's my daughter. She's... Before she could get to the rest of her sentence out, the woman burst into tears. She looked to be in near panic. What's wrong? Is she in danger? Rowan glanced over her shoulders, but saw no one else with her. She's evidently been going door to door to try to find him. The poor thing could barely formulate words. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she tried in vain to get the words out. Start with something easy. What's your name? Oh, God is fend. Where are my manners? My name is Meryl. She bowed her head slightly and offered her hand. Rowan took it briefly, recalling the many women he had met at all the balls following the triumph of the crusade against Karnas. She was a highborn, or at least versed in the court etiquette. A pleasure to meet you, Meryl. Now, what's all this about your daughter? At the mention of her daughter, Meryl's expression collapsed once again. She buried her face in the cloth. Oh gods, it's terrible. With a cry, Meryl slumped down in the seat, covering her face with her hands. At that moment, Alexia re-entered from the other room, her eyes matching with Rowan's for a moment in question. He nodded at her to join them. Is she alright? Who is this woman? Alexia's wavery look of concern softened to a pity as Rowan explained the situation to her. Let me try a softer approach, darling. She patted over the grief-stricken woman, placing her arms around her in a delicate manner, so as to not startle her. Hello, Meryl. My name is Alexia. I'm Rowan's wife. Will you please look at me? The stricken woman started her teary gaze to see Alexia smiling down at her. Alexia squeezed her shoulders reassuringly. Everything's going to be fine. You found someone who can help you now. You just try to tell Rowan what the problem is, and I will make you something hot to drink, okay? The simple act of kindness seemed to help Meryl slowly regain her composure. She sat up a little straighter, removing her hands from her face. Yes, thank you. You are both very kind. Try to stay calm. Tell me what has happened, as best you can. Start at the beginning. My daughter and I were returning to Prathia after visiting family on the western shore. We had hoped to return earlier in the year, but heavy snowfall had made the mountains impossible to traverse. When the first thaw came, we left the home with 2 knights of the Althro house as protection. Alexia returned with a cup of water. Meryl smiled weakly at the gesture, accepting it with trembling hands. The journey was uneventful. Once we left the mountains behind, the knights took their leave, believing Rosaria would be safe enough for us to travel alone. Your country is very beautiful, and everything was quite peaceful until yesterday. We were camped in the fields not far from here, preparing to make our way north, then east, to Rostel. But when I woke this morning, my Nira was nowhere to be found. I searched the fields all morning, calling her name to no avail. I saw tracks leading into the western woods, footsteps in the mud leading from our camp. How old is your daughter? She's just a little girl. If something has happened to her, I don't know what I will do. I can't lose her. Console her. I assure you, she's almost certainly fine.
I feel like our guy wouldn't do that, but sometimes you just reassure people.
She probably just got curious and wandered off into the night. I bet she is just lost, tired, and maybe a little bit hungry. Don't worry. I am a good finder of lost things. I will bring her back to you, I promise. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know how I will ever be able to repay you.
Knowing this type of game, there'll be a way.
Your war gear?
Everything will be fine.
I'm only taking my sword as a precaution. I will be back before you know it. You just keep Meryl company for now, okay? I will, beloved. Be safe. Please be careful, Rowan. I would hate for something to happen to you at my expense. A few hours later, it hadn't taken Rowan long to find the trail at the edge of the woods. His head snapped to the left as an arrow came whistling forth from somewhere within the thick brush. Luckily for Rowan, it missed its mark, flying harmlessly past him and embedding itself in a nearby tree. Orcs? Oh! We got orcs! Rowan whirled around, drawing his sword in a single swift movement. A half-breath passed before the rustling of bushes in front of him heralded their arrival. Half a dozen orcs merged from the trees, surrounding him on all sides. They've been waiting for him. The largest one, their leader, he reasoned, stepped forward. He was confident with his odds. A grave mistake. Where is the girl?
Is no girl.
What do you mean?
Is no girl. Never was. You stupid humi. Fall for a trap like other stupid humies.
The realization hit Rowan like a twist of the knife in the stomach. If this had been Meryl's plan to draw him away all along, then Alexia and the rest of the village were in even more danger than he was.
Oh, let's go!
Hope he slices his head off. Rowan backed up, making space between him and his aggressors. He lifted the tip of his blade, staring with deadly focus beyond the orc's leering features. The only way out was through.
Don't be stupid, Humi. Be smart, Humi, for change. Just put that weapon down and make no fuss.
Attack. You have to attack! Rowan did not respond with words. His blade leapt out, slashing one of the unsuspecting orcs who had gotten a little too close to his guard in the throat. He fell to his knees, the blade clattering from his neck as red fountained from his neck. One foe dead, the rest to come. Show me some blood! Yes! Alright, I wanted some action in here, alright? I don't mind the spicy stuff, but you gotta give me that action too. The sound of steel clashing against steel rang out through the otherwise tranquil woods. In the deepening twilight, Rowan fought for his life.
Meanwhile,
And in the summer, Protho is truly a sight to behold. They have these beautiful processions through the city of the Cardius of Light in honor of Silencia. Everyone wears the most magnificent outfits, crowned in golden roses and in the silks of the finest silver cloths. It is so colorful and lively. Oh, you simply must go one day. It sounds wonderful. Alexia was struggling to pay attention. She stood at the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of her husband returning down the lane to their cottage, like he always did. She saw nothing but the sun sinking low to meet the horizon. There was this deep, foreboding feeling that swimmered in her gut, a feeling not at all helped by the chatty Prothean. She could barely think straight. It's getting dark. He should have been back by now. Oh, I think he might be a while longer yet, my sweet girl. Alexia knew instantly that something was wrong. Meryl's voice has changed. Less than half an hour ago, she had been shrieking with grief. Now she sounded almost smug. She turned her face to the young Prothean and found her smiling. The hairs on the back of Alexia's neck stood up. What do you mean by that? By now, he should have encountered a little trap that I left for him waiting in the woods. Orcs do enjoy a good fight. Orcs? Meryl rose from her chair. The smile grew wider and wider. Soon it was leering, a villainous grin. Do not worry, Alexia. It's nothing your husband cannot handle. It'll just keep him busy for a little while. Who are you? Why are you doing this? I suppose the ruse has gone on long enough. I do love a good charade, but all great things must come to an end, as they say. No! Not Alexia! Meryl's face darkened, a swirl of magic wafting from her body. Alexia gasped as the delicate features of one of Silencia's chosen faded away to an unnatural bluish color. Alexia fell backward onto the hardwood floor, terror seizing hold of her chest as crawled desperately on her hands away from the shape-shifting creature. Where the white-haired girl had stood was now a beautiful blue-hue woman. Her revealing outfit was a garnished accent to her already inhuman appearance. You're a demon! Hey! Succubus, maybe? Aren't you quick to catch on? But the question isn't what I am. It's what I'm going to do with you. With another wave of her hand, the demon summoned her revealing outfit, a low-cut red and golden dress, to emphasize her ample cleavage, accompanied by a pair of long black leather gloves. Oh, I like that outfit. I mean, I do like a demon that knows how to dress. This is much better. Now, what am I going to do with you?
just then,
That orc's still alive! His heart was racing in his chest for a mixture of adrenaline and fear. The rough stink of filth and gore filled his nostrils. The ground around him was stained red. The bodies of 4 dead and dying bodies were strewn about the grove. They're clumsy but powerful. Thrusts had failed to land against Rowan, but his skilled blows had all but found their mark. It had been grueling, but with blow after blow, he brought them to their knees. He turned, panting but ready for more, toward the final orc, the largest of the brutes, the one who had seemed like their leader. Ha ha. See, this is why you stupid, Humi. You's worried about me, but you should be worried about me's masters. Masters? The greenskin gave him a toothy smile. Now he gets it. The two clashed again, blades crossing. The orc tried to decapitate Rowan with a crowning strike. Rowan kept his distance, frustrating the monster's attempt to use his superior strength to force the advantage. Soon, it was skirting the edge of the grove. Seeing his opponent's back was to the trees, the orc flung himself at the hero, attempting to grapple with him. His smaller opponent opted to pirouette. He sidestepped, slicing the beast's stomach and splitting his midsection open at the ribs. Blood poured from the wound as Ruin drew his blade free. His foe sunk to the ground, body shuddering, its eyes glazing over as it fell to its death's throne. Rowan had no time to reflect on his victory, or even reflect on his opponents who had implied about the reasoning they'd been fighting. He broke out into a run, not bothering to sheath his sword. As he left the clearing, the woods engulfed him like a witch's finger. Goddess, please, keep Alexia safe, at least until I get there. But that small prayer, meant only for the ears of the heavens, was heard by someone else. Rowan did not notice, but in the woods was a glimmering pair of golden eyes, watching intently from afar. And as he worked his way back towards Arthdale, they followed him every step of the way, never losing sight of their prey.
Oh, what the heck? Another demon?
This is going to be fun. But is Alexia okay? Emerging through the last lingering trees, he kept upon the sight of the true horror. The attack had already begun. As he moved, his mind went to a safety of planning. Evacuate anyone he could from the town while they tried to... No, Alexia! There, in front of his home, as brazen as he could be, stood a sharply blue-skinned demon. Her eyes had lighted at the sight of Rowan, as if she's been expecting him. The creature's hellish countenance twisted into a mocking smile. Alexia knelt at her feet, her hands bound. The creatures cradled his wife's head against her midsection, with mock paternal care. Her smile widened as Ronan stalked forward, his knuckles clenched white around the hilt of his sword, murder burning his eyes.
Okay, hold up. She looks menacing there, but looks hella cute here, let's be real.
Ah, there you are, hero. So glad you finally joined us. I was beginning to think this whole village would be leveled before you returned to us. Rowan ignored the demon's taunts, focusing instead on Alexia. She had yet to look up at him. Her head hung almost lifeless as she stared at the ground. If you've hurt her in any way. Now, Rowan Blackwell. There's no need for threats. Your wife is perfectly fine. Just a little magic to make her a bit more agreeable. Couldn't have her running off before we talked, could we? The demon gently stroked her hair in a favored pet, smirking at Rowan's dark scowl. Let her go. In due time, Rowan appraised the demon. She didn't look very strong. Perhaps a succubus, given her shape-shifting abilities. Hundreds of her kind fought in the demon ranks during the war. He stepped forward, and she made no moves to stop him. This was all supposed to be so much easier. And you insist on making a nuisance of yourself. Frankly, I find all this violence and bloodshed boorish. Rowan swung hard at the head in a diagonal slice. The demon's head jerked back, reacting far quicker than Rowan had been expecting. Blue energy sprung from her fingertips, only just parrying away the turn of Rowan's sword as it arched towards her exposed throat. Her face was lit in bright, unnatural contrast, highlighting her inhuman features in angular blues. Rowan didn't give her time to recover. He swung again, aiming at this time at her bare chest. The demon let out a grunt and narrowly batted that away as well, backing up to make space. She let go of Alexia, who collapsed to the ground, groaning. That wasn't very noble of you, hero. Her movements might have been fast, but they were those of an amateur. Rowan rushed forward, stepping deep in her guard, his blade a silver blur. She batted the strike away, but he was ready for it this time. Rather than trying to recover, he simply let go of his sword, knocking her off balance from the sudden lack of resistance. He pulled his dagger free from his sheath, plunging it directly into her.
No! Homeboy Woods. Oh, she looks hot there. But this guy, come on.
Ah!
Oh, he's bleeding.
A red flash of demonic magic filled his vision. It cracked in the air like the sound of sparkling embers. Rowan was blasted with the full force of evocation. It was like burning needles jabbing in his joints, like white-hot sandpaper scraping the inside of his skin. Pain arched through his body as the magic nearly drove him to his knees. He was frozen in place. His dagger slipped free from his throbbing fingers. It's a good thing I returned when I did, dear sister. It looked like this fool was about to shiv you in the guts. The female demon let out a derisive huff of air, brushing herself off. I was just playing with my food a bit, Andrus. You, of all people, have no right to criticize me for that indulgence. You were about to be stabbed. Curious way to toy with him. Andrus lifted his head back and laughed in sharp derision. The purple demon, who he called Sister, shot him a glare with a furrowed brow. Things were well in hand, I assure you. If you say so, Jezera. Huh. Magic bled from the red demon's fingertips, forming a chaotic circle of energy above Rowan's head. The initial shock of the spell had worn off, but the pain was still such that his shoulders bent down like a bow from the weight of it. Just kill me, monster! Oh dear hero, no. You misunderstand our intent. My brother, you see, has always been of the mistaken impression that force is the only way to get what you want. She picks up Alexia off the ground, bringing her to her knees and pressing her cheeks against her waist. But we women know that you can catch more flies with honey. Dearest brother, how is he still standing? Down, fool! Red energy pulsed, engulfing Rowan once more in a sea of agony. Despite the stabbing pain, he remained standing, his fist clenching so tightly into his palms that he felt blood on his fingertips. He had to stay. I said down! A third blast of power struck him, nearly blinding him with this brightness. Rowan let out a roar of pain. At last falling to his knees before them, the sheer weight of the spell, the two demons cackled. Much better. See how much easier things are when you listen to us, hero? Rowan lifted his head and looked at his sickened wife. Alexia's eyes were open. She had only been pretending to be unconscious. Their gaze met, unspoken words passing between them. The bottom dropped out of Rowan's stomach as he realized what she was about to do. Alexia let out a giant scream and shook from side to side in a futile effort to wrench herself free from Jezra's vice grip. The demons recoiled in surprise, but in the same amount threw out an instinctual slap, which pummeled Alexia's cheek. Rude. Rowan better go Vegeta after she got slapped.
That's my...
Alexia groaned and whimpered, but Andreas was, briefly, left distracted by the siblings' outburst. Rowan leapt forward, scrambling for his dagger. Taking it in both hands, he slammed it down hard into the demon's foot. The Andress let out a roar of anger, which his concentration broke. The spell dissipated and the burning agony of energies faded away. Rowan jumped up to his feet. Andress immediately began casting the spell once more. Weaponless, unable to defend himself, he only had one chance. Rowan flung himself through the entryway of his home. He'd broken line of sight and the spell no longer had any hold over him. He sprinted to the rear of the house, throwing himself through the window and out the back, with the red demon in hot pursuit. There was no time to dwell on the horror of it all. He retreated from the window and took to the stairs down. There he found the Fletcher and his wife cowering behind the counter of their shop. Rowan! Thank the goddess it's you! Jaren, they're setting fire to the town. Head to the back door, make for the woods. But, go! There's no time! Rowan yanks a hunting bow off the wall. Shouldering a quiver of arrows, he has made for the roof once more. He rapidly put together 3 different avenues he could use easily to escape, if that's what he wished. This invasion was planned by amateurs. Rowan did not run. His wife was still captive. Slipping back down to the ground, Rowan knocked an arrow. It caught the first orc he saw in the face. No sooner had he loosened, he was drawing a second arrow from the quiver, all the while making with all haste towards the center of town. The more he breathed in, the more he felt his lungs filling with smoke. The adrenaline and the lingering image of his captive wife drove him on. This is taking too long. And whose fault is that, brother? This was your plan, remember? I'm just tying up loose ends. Our missing hero is a hell of a loose end. We have his woman. We have leverage. Such leverage is useless if he dies in the blaze. And if he did, what use was a fool like that to us anyway? A fair point. Unbeknownst to either demon, Rowan was listening intently on their conversation. He'd made the mistake of attacking them head-on before. This time, he would not give them the opportunity. Now he was perched in a building with a clear overhead look of the pair of demons. A perfect striking spot, but one risky by the fire at its base. There was risk of collapsing at any moment. Rowan! I know you can hear me, boy! If you ever wish to see your beloved Alexia again, you will come to the site of your final battle against Karnus. I am sure you have not forgotten where that was. Come along, human, and do not even think about bringing along some of your little friends like last time. You won't like what happens to your precious wife if you do. A strange blue glow surrounded the 3 of them as Jezra spoke. Rowan knocked an arrow, aiming directly at Jezra's throat. Just a moment more. We'll be waiting, hero. The bowstring twanged as a sharp death flew from his fingertips. But even as it sailed towards its destination, there was a flash of light. It crossed over empty air, slamming with grim impotence into the wall behind where the 3 once stood. Do you want more Seeds of Chaos? Let me know in the comment sections down below.